The morning sun bathed the city square in a warm golden light, casting long shadows that stretched across the pavement. Crowds had gathered early, filling every available space around the main stage, eager to catch a glimpse of Senator Brandon Cole, the divisive politician who'd sparked both admiration and fury across the nation. Banners and signs dotted the crowd, some waving with enthusiastic support, others emblazoned with slogans of protest. Despite the mixed emotions, an electric energy pulsed through the crowd, the air charged with anticipation. Alex Stone, a young journalist known for his relentless pursuit of truth, stood at the edge of the crowd, notebook in hand, camera slung over his shoulder. Alex's heart raced, though not from excitement. He'd always felt a strange unease covering Cole's events. There was something about the senator's powerful aura and controversial policies that made Alex's instincts tingle. But as a journalist, Alex knew that wherever the story was, he needed to be. The crowd grew restless as the senator took the stage, flashing a wide smile that belied the tension radiating around him. He gripped the podium, beginning his speech with the kind of practiced confidence only a seasoned politician could muster. His voice boomed across the square, addressing both his supporters and critics alike, speaking of unity, progress, and a future we can build together. Alex scribbled notes, capturing the speech's essence while glancing periodically at the senator's guarded expressions. Suddenly, a piercing crack shattered the air, a gunshot. Time seemed to freeze for an instant, and then chaos erupted. Another shot followed, and then another, each one louder than the last. The senator staggered, his face a mask of shock and pain as he clutched his chest, collapsing to the ground. "Everyone down! Get down!" shouted security personnel, swarming the stage as bystanders screamed and ducked for cover. People pushed and stumbled in every direction, desperate to escape the invisible threat. Alex dropped his notebook, adrenaline taking over as he instinctively raised his camera, snapping shots of the scene unfolding around him. Through his lens, he saw a flurry of security officers scrambling to assess the situation, some rushing to help the senator, others scanning the rooftops, eyes narrowed in search of the shooter. Alex's heart pounded in his chest as he continued to photograph the chaos, every frame telling the story of the fear, confusion, and despair that gripped the crowd. "Did anyone see where it came from?" someone nearby shouted. But the crowd was in disarray, everyone talking at once. "It was over there, no, from that building," another voice argued, pointing wildly. In the midst of the chaos, Alex's instincts kicked in, guiding him toward the stage. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, knowing that every detail he captured could be crucial later. He scanned the crowd, his journalist's eye catching subtle details. A man with an unusual camera who seemed too calm, a woman quickly pocketing her phone, glancing over her shoulder before disappearing into the mass of people. Suddenly, he was jolted by a firm hand on his shoulder. "Sir, you need to move back," a security officer barked, his expression tense. Alex nodded, stepping back reluctantly, but his mind was racing. There was a story here, something hidden beneath the panic and confusion, something more than just a single tragic event. The newsroom buzzed as usual, but Alex felt the weight of silence around him, like a storm brewing just beneath the surface. He sat at his cluttered desk, replaying the images he'd captured in his mind, the chaos, the panic, the precise chilling brutality of the shots that had felled Senator Cole. The tragedy should have led to an outpouring of witnesses eager to tell their stories, and yet his phone had barely rung since the incident. His assistant, Leah, perched on the corner of his desk, scrolling through a collection of stills and video clips they'd managed to collect. "It's strange," she murmured, frowning. "Every time I reach out to someone who was there, they shut down. One minute, they seem willing to talk, and the next, they're terrified." Alex sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's more than strange, Leah. Something's off. I've called people who usually never stop talking, longtime sources, eyewitnesses, they all just go silent." Leah raised an eyebrow, glancing at her laptop screen. "And it's not just the people. Look at this." She turned the laptop toward him, playing a shaky cell phone video of the incident that had surfaced on social media. But halfway through, The footage blurred, pixelating just as the shots were fired. "It's like someone's selectively censoring the footage," she said, her voice low. Alex's stomach twisted as he watched the distortion, realizing it wasn't a simple glitch. "Do you think?" He didn't need to finish the question. Leah's silence was enough. Determined, Alex began reaching out to local news stations, police contacts, even people within Cole's own campaign, looking for any raw footage from the scene. Each call ended the same. No one had anything useful, or the videos had mysteriously corrupted. Frustrated but undeterred, he and Leah dug through archived security feeds from nearby buildings, only to find that the most critical footage had been wiped clean. Days passed, and Alex's frustration grew, but a lead finally arrived in the form of a heavily redacted police report that Leah managed to obtain through a back channel. "Look at this," she whispered, her face pale as she held up the document. 2 surveillance cameras near the stage stopped recording exactly 10 minutes before the shots were fired. Alex's heart pounded as he skimmed the pages. So someone either tampered with the cameras or ordered them shut down. But who would have that kind of access? Leah leaned closer, whispering, "Someone high up. Really high up." With this revelation, Alex's determination only strengthened. He decided to start interviewing people close to Senator Cole, hoping they might reveal anything unusual in the days leading up to the assassination. However, he quickly found that many people had vanished from the city, taking indefinite leaves or refusing to answer his calls. And those who did answer, they offered only evasive, rehearsed responses. Then, an old source of his, a retired officer named Tom Whitaker, finally agreed to meet him. They met in a dimly lit diner late at night, and Tom's eyes darted around the room as he spoke in hushed tones. "Alex, listen to me. There are things you're better off not knowing. People at the top, they control everything. They see everything." Tom looked at Alex with a warning in his eyes. "I don't know who they are exactly, but I know that they're powerful, and they don't tolerate people poking around." As Alex probed further, Tom abruptly stopped talking, as though something had dawned on him. "I've said too much," he muttered, shoving his chair back hastily and slipping out of the diner without another word. Confused and shaken, Alex returned to the office. He found Leah hunched over her computer, scrolling through encrypted messages. She looked up, her face serious. "I found something. Some of the missing documents, their metadata traces back to an encrypted server, one that only government officials would have access to." Alex's blood ran cold. "You mean they're covering this up? People in the government?" Leah nodded. "It's looking that way. And they're doing it so efficiently, Alex, it's like they've done this 100 times before." They exchanged a long, tense look, the realization settling over them. They were dealing with forces much larger than they'd anticipated. The days bled into each other as Alex and Leah continued their investigation, poring over documents, videos, and reports until their eyes burned. But one night, as Alex scanned through hours of footage from surrounding buildings, he stumbled across something startling. A brief clip from a nearby bank's security camera that had somehow slipped through the official sweep. In the grainy video, a man in a dark suit stood close to the alleged shooter just minutes before the assassination. The man's face was partially obscured, but his stance and confident movements suggested authority. Then, as if sensing the camera's gaze, he turned ever so slightly, and Alex froze. The man bore a striking resemblance to a high-ranking government official, someone from the senator's inner circle. Leah leaned in, squinting at the screen. "Isn't that?" "Yes," Alex replied, voice tight with disbelief. The implications of this were massive. If this official was connected to the shooter, the entire narrative surrounding the assassination could have been manipulated, framing someone else as the culprit. He couldn't help but wonder, was the real shooter still out there, protected by people in power? Fueled by the revelation, Alex began to question every detail he had uncovered. Old news articles, police statements, witness testimonies. He re-examined everything, drawing connections between names and faces he'd overlooked in his first pass. The web of clues began to expand, with inconsistencies emerging that painted a different story. Just as Alex thought he was making progress, he received an email. The subject line was simple: "Meet me." The sender was anonymous, and the email contained only a set of coordinates and the signature, "The Ghost." Leah's eyes widened as she read over his shoulder. "The Ghost? Do you think it's safe?" Alex shrugged, though his mind was already made up. If this person knows anything about what's really going on, it's worth the risk. Whoever they are, they know I'm looking for answers. That night, Alex arrived at the abandoned warehouse specified in the email. The air was thick with tension as he stepped inside, his flashlight casting long shadows against rusted machinery and dust-covered windows. "Alex Stone," a voice called from the shadows. A tall, thin figure stepped forward, his face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. "They told me you were relentless, but I didn't believe it until now." Alex's grip tightened on his flashlight. "And you are?" "Just someone who knows the truth," the man replied cryptically, his voice low and calm. "Or rather, the many truths they've constructed. Truths for the public, truths for the officials, and a truth that no one's supposed to know." Alex took a step closer, his heart pounding. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because the truth deserves to come out," the ghost replied, his words laced with urgency. He handed Alex a small USB drive. "This contains footage you won't find anywhere else. It's the unedited truth of what happened that day, showing people you'd never expect to be involved. But don't think it'll be easy. Every truth has layers, and some of those layers are meant to hide the real story." Before Alex could ask another question, the ghost stepped back into the shadows. "Be careful, Alex," he said softly. "They're always watching." And with that, he was gone. Back in his office, Alex plugged in the USB drive, his screen flickering to life with a series of raw video files. His stomach churned as he watched, piece by piece, the unfiltered footage of that day. It showed angles he hadn't seen before, moments erased from every official recording. But the most shocking detail was the government official, who appeared in frame after frame, conversing with the shooter just moments before the attack. Leah joined him, watching in stunned silence as the footage confirmed their darkest suspicions. "Alex," she whispered, "we've been chasing shadows, but this is real." Alex nodded, but a chill ran down his spine. He knew that the deeper he dug, the more dangerous the truth became, and he was no longer certain who he could trust. Alex's hands trembled as he scanned the footage on the USB drive. Each clip was a missing piece of a puzzle he hadn't realized was so vast. Government officials meeting with suspected criminals, secret exchanges in dimly lit parking garages, even snippets of conversation hinting at plans that reached beyond the senator's assassination. The evidence pointed toward a complex network of powerful figures, all seemingly working to keep the truth buried. Alex had no doubt now. This was bigger than anything he'd ever imagined. It wasn't just one person or even one organization behind the assassination. It was a tangled web of interest groups, each with something to gain from Senator Cole's death. The more he dug, the more names surfaced: corporate tycoons, political players, and security agencies, all linked through hidden deals and whispers in dark corners. Driven by a sense of duty and moral outrage, Alex spent every waking hour piecing together a story that would shake the foundations of trust in the country's leaders. But as he grew closer to the truth, subtle warnings began to reach him. It started with strange phone calls in the middle of the night, just silence on the other end, but a chilling reminder that someone was watching him. Then one evening, Leah arrived at his apartment, her face pale, holding a note she'd found slipped under her door. "Keep your distance or you'll regret it." As the days passed, more unsettling signs appeared. Alex noticed a black car parked across the street from his office, its tinted windows shielding whoever sat inside. His computer would occasionally act up, freezing just as he uncovered a critical document or contact. Even his colleagues began to look at him with wary eyes, some of them quickly excusing themselves when he tried to share his findings. The pressure only intensified when his boss, Michael, pulled him into his office one afternoon. his face lined with exhaustion and concern. "Alex," Michael began, his tone low. "I've been hearing things. People upstairs aren't happy with this investigation. They're starting to think you're getting too close." Alex leaned forward, his eyes blazing. "Isn't that the whole point of journalism, Michael? To find the truth, no matter how close we get?" Michael sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Listen, I want the truth as much as you do, but this isn't just some political scandal. You're talking about people with power, real power. I'm telling you, it's not worth the risk." Alex shook his head, refusing to back down. "If we stop now, we're letting them win. They want to scare us into silence to keep everyone in the dark." Michael met his gaze, something almost like fear flickering in his eyes. "Just be careful, Alex. I can't protect you if this goes sideways." After that meeting, Alex felt more alone than ever. Even Leah, his most loyal ally, had begun to grow distant, her nerves worn thin by the constant threats. The mounting pressure was a dark cloud over them both, turning even the familiar streets of the city into a landscape of paranoia. One evening, as he walked home, footsteps echoed behind him, quickening whenever he did. Glancing over his shoulder, he saw a figure duck into the shadows, but his gut told him he was being followed. By the time he reached his building, his hands shook as he fumbled for his keys. He slipped inside, slamming the door behind him. But sleep didn't come easily that night. Despite the threats, Alex's resolve only hardened. He spent the next days preparing his findings, compiling everything into a comprehensive report that exposed the intricate network of corruption and deceit behind the senator's assassination. But as he was about to publish, an email flashed on his screen from an unknown sender. "If you value your life, stop now." The words were simple, but they chilled him to the core. They'd been watching, and they were close. Alex sat at his desk, staring at the files he'd spent months risking his life to gather. Threats, intimidation, and isolation had done little to deter him. But now, on the brink of releasing the truth, he felt the weight of it. Exposing this story would bring repercussions, not just for him, but for everyone involved. Yet he knew, deep down, that if he stayed silent, he would become complicit in the very system he despised. With a few swift keystrokes, he compiled his investigation into an encrypted folder and uploaded it to a private server. From there, he distributed the files across multiple online platforms, timing the release so it would hit social media, alternative news sites, and blogs all at once. The story exploded within minutes, igniting a wildfire of reactions. The footage of officials meeting with suspected criminals, the deleted videos, the redacted documents, it was all out there for the world to see. People took notice. Social media erupted with hashtags calling for justice, while Alex's phone buzzed incessantly with calls and messages. Messages poured in from supporters, whistleblowers, and people claiming to know more about the conspiracy, each one adding fuel to the fire. But as quickly as the support grew, so did the backlash. Within hours, officials held a press conference, dismissing Alex's findings as fabrications and misrepresentations. Government representatives insisted that the footage was doctored, accusing Alex of being a conspiracy theorist driven by personal vendettas rather than facts. Major news networks began questioning his credibility, running segments that cast doubt on his sources and the authenticity of his evidence. Alex watched the broadcasts, feeling a wave of frustration and helplessness. It was a classic tactic: discredit the truth-teller, muddy the waters, and hope the public would lose interest. Yet despite the official denials, a spark had been lit. People flooded the internet with their own questions, digging into records, following up on Alex's leads, and demanding answers from those in power. Forums buzzed with debates, some doubting, some defending, but all engaged in a collective pursuit of the truth. Leah reached out to him that night, her voice filled with pride and worry. "You did it, Alex. You may not have broken through every wall, but you've shaken them. People are questioning, asking, some are even organizing protests. This isn't going away." A bittersweet smile crossed Alex's face. He knew he hadn't uncovered every piece of the puzzle, and there were forces working tirelessly to suppress what he had exposed. But he had planted seeds of doubt, inspiring others to look deeper, to question, to resist the carefully crafted narratives they were fed. Days turned into weeks, and although the official story continued to shift, the public's hunger for answers only grew. In the end, Alex knew he couldn't control the outcome. The truth was now in the hands of the people. He had done all he could, throwing open the doors for others to follow his path, challenging them to find the courage to uncover what lay hidden in the fog of lies. As he closed his laptop, Alex felt a deep, quiet satisfaction. He had not won a perfect victory, but he had sparked something far more powerful than a single story and awakening.